أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome everyone to another episode where we're trying to bring to you various women who have made a mark in their lives as well as in various fields of human development. Today we have my very favorite Dr. Francesca Bocca. Dr. Francesca has a PhD in Systemic Neuroscience from University of Munich, and she also holds a diploma in Islamic Psychology. I'll just add that I have an opportunity of working with her. She was my boss in the International Open University, and we had a great time together. Dr. Francesca has written several books on the topic of Islamic theology, contemporary Islamic issues, and poetry. Thank you very much for joining in, Dr. Francesca. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much for having me here with you, Sister Bella.
And how is everything there? How's the weather there in your
Alhamdulillah, cold,
Good.
foggy, but doing well, preparing for the first snow. So that's amazing, Alhamdulillah.
I just turned off my AC for the interview, and you have snow falling. So, subhanallah, the amazing difference in the weathers in the part of the world that we live in. All right, Dr. Francesca, I'm going to be talking about women's mental health, right? And in your experience, what are some of the unique mental health challenges that women of this day and age are facing, um, particularly with the advent of modernity and so many challenges in terms of social media, in terms of other roles that they are trying to play in their lives?
Yes, so there are many specific issues for women about their mental health for sure in this age, which add on the ones that are specific for women in every day and age. So the ones related to postpartum or child rearing. And nowadays, also those have changed a little bit. So I'd like to say a word about these changes in general. I think that mental health of women starts being affected from a very young age, of course, regarding self-image and regarding what it means to be a woman. That's, of course, a question that women of all ages have asked themselves when they're growing up and they don't want to be girls anymore, but they want to be women. What does it mean to be a woman? Is it a certain code of conduct? Is it getting married? What is it exactly? Nowadays the problem is that as a society, at least here in the West, but I think the global village makes it relevant also elsewhere, women do not have a clear answer when they search, when they look. There are many different ways of being a woman, and not in a healthy way, meaning that, of course, there have always been different ways of being a woman. There have been married women, unmarried women, women with many children, with few children, and that was okay. And that's a normal variation within human beings. We should cherish and enriches our environment. Well, nowadays it's a complete confusion. Also, it seems for young girls coming to age that what matters most is the aesthetic you choose for yourself. So everything is a trend, everything is an aesthetic. And for example, I live in a quite rural area, and it is very funny for me to look women who like cosplay as being farmers or cottagecore or whatever, and it doesn't look like that in real life. So these made up aesthetics, they might appeal to the view, but do not tell you anything about what you are going to be. What are your values going to be? What's your everyday life even going to be in such settings? So you have the first confusion is that you study at the university, and then you can be whoever you want. Here is what they tell you, right? And this is supposed to be freeing, but for many women and for many men as well, this is very scary, because if I can be whatever I want, I have an immense amount of weight on my shoulders, and the decision is just mine. And if I screw it up, then it's only gonna be my fault. While if I continue like in pre-modernity doing the same type of work that my father did, that's just the way things go. So there is this added load, added issue of choosing who to be and who to be in terms of work, because of course nowadays women are economically independent, so they're supposed to do that, but at the same time trying to find a way to express their femininity. And sometimes even though this is something so deep in itself, the femininity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen to create as an opposed polarity with masculinity has many powerful secrets. And none of them are the ones that we can find online. So unfortunately, we are exposed with ways of being a woman that is just based on appearance. And when it is not based on appearance, it is based on conflictuality, for example, not conflictuality with the other gender, conflictuality within society. In short, there does not seem to be a way to be a woman that is happy and in peace and positive with the world around her. And this is very concerning psychologically. And it adds, of course, on the specific issues of, for example, postpartum and raising babies that are issues of mental health, because they affect women a lot, and especially when they do not have enough space to do so, right? When they're expected to bounce back from giving birth in 2 weeks to go back to work, or educated the children just in evenings and weekends. These are also things that can tear mental health down in passing time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, Dr. Francesca, so as you're speaking, a lot of things came to my mind. I'll just try to probably summarize it in a few words that you spoke about, knowing yourself, identifying, recognizing yourself, and especially those of us who go to university. University has a different environment altogether and has so many things to present, and you have to choose one from. And if you don't know what you are and what you stand for, then just God help you. So, how do we recognize ourselves? How do we know who we are?
It's a very, very important and deep question. The first answer I'd like to give is that there is no specific age for that. So we tend to focus so much that if we do not get it right at 19 when we choose our initial subject, and it's over. I myself changed my work and my situation many times. After that, even I became a Muslim after that. So subhanallah, it's not such a extreme and final choice, the one of going to university. Yet at the same time, I think the most important thing is really, can you imagine a life doing that? More than, is it really something that gives you passion at the moment? Is it something you're interested in? Because you can be interested in 10, 20, 30 things, but just not figure out a way to do that every day. And this is especially true for the more challenging professions, the ones that, for example, require you to be in a hospital or doing shift work or being very far away from home. That's something that should be analyzed before
Yeah, or
choosing.
in academia, writing papers and delivering lectures and doing a gazillion things at the same time. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And this can be something that can be your call. It can be that we need women doing that. But many times we see that our girls that study a subject like medicine because it's prestigious, and they might even graduate, but then it's like, I can't do that all my life. That's also okay. But it should be, I think, a choice where they're guided a little bit more in understanding that the passion for a subject is important, but at the same time, your everyday life, your mental health, your family health, your system health all around you after you graduate is as important. Then there's no problem changing paths also afterwards.
Absolutely. Again, with the day and age that we live in, social media has become very important. It has become an integral part in defining who we are or giving a label to us, right? And how do you think that impacts our mental health, and especially women's mental health? And what are the ways that you would suggest to navigate it?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that social media should be done only when someone has like a basic understanding or practicing of intention in Islam. So social media is something that tends to bring us in the most mindless part of ourselves. And that is not good because we have, on the one hand, our fitra, our good predisposition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. And on the other hand, there is the ghafla, like the forgetfulness of the dunya. And the most forgetful thing I've ever seen in my life is social media. So one should go there mindfully, but mindfully not in the sense of Buddhist practice of just being aware of what we're doing. No, with a judgment on that. Mindfulness and full of ability to discriminate between right and wrong. Not only that, also our decision to post something should be guided by an intention, because we know very well, and the Prophet ﷺ said that the thing that he feared the most for his community was the minor shirk, and that meant doing something good so that others would appreciate what we're doing. And that takes away from our intention and takes away from our reward, and that can even turn into a punishment for us. So how do we avoid that? Well, if we really have to use social media, I suggest limit to post very neutral stuff, like, and good reminders and nice things of nature and so on, and avoid posting our accomplishments unless absolutely necessary. On some social medias, it is necessary to post what do you do for a job, and it's life. But be aware, when you post something you achieved, the marriage, a degree, or whatever you won, a prize, or try not to make any space of it a part of showing off, because that is self-destructive, and that is self-destructive religiously, but not only that, because it can bring you into a space of perpetual comparison with other people as well. So you can get a degree, of course, but someone will always get a higher mark, or get to a more prestigious university, or throw a bigger party, and then even if you're just publishing about your intelligence accomplishments, then you're turning into the same wheel of the women that post just their appearance, because there's always someone more beautiful. You're just doing the same thing, just on a different plane. It's difficult to escape. Yeah, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Very true, Dr. Francesca. And I usually in therapeutic settings, of course, you and I, perhaps we both have experienced that. Women come and they are living a decent, healthy life. They're married, have children, but this social media has just ruined their lives, because there's this constant comparison, right? Because as you said that, there can always be someone who's more beautiful than you, or there's always can be someone who had gone to a better place for vacations than you can. So what would you suggest people to do in terms of, avoiding this comparison when you go on social media? It's inevitable. You will go and you will still find some people doing better than you are doing.
Yes. What I suggest to my clients in particular is try to see social media as a performative act. So social media is not the place of reality. You're not seeing someone else's reality. You're seeing someone else's projection and imagination of their ambitions. So that has nothing to do with their reality. Because I sometimes do examples to my clients. Like, I could wake up one day and show off something as being mine while it isn't. Or I could post I'm doing something while I'm not. And who's gonna call me out? Nobody. Nobody really knows me, there. So, and we see many times social media presences that fall into the same errors, and then they get debunked, and that's everybody's shocked. How could they like fake whatever thing they're doing? Well, everybody else is faking too. So try to understand that as just that's a work of imagination. It's as if we all had a blank page and we could write whatever we want, whatever we imagine, to give the best possible image to someone else. Of course, we would like not present the shortcomings. Of course, we will try to look better, stronger, and all the rest. But there are different levels of comparison. And I would like to say a word also, because in the last year, since of course the last Israeli attack, social media has also become a place of challenges for mental health in another way, meaning that we are seeing our brothers and sisters suffering. And through the algorithm, this takes a very weird and random characteristic. So you might be looking at poster of a cat, and then the next post is immense human suffering, and then the next one is gym advices. And this is dystopic, really, and has a horrible effect on mental health, because you might want to think about an issue and, for example, learn about what is going on in Palestine, but you can't. If you're on social media, you will just be like constantly bombarded with content that you can't just understand who they are, where they are, what's going on, why did this happen. You just always ask why. And this can also tear down mental health a lot. I'm seeing a lot of cases of people who are even not being able to function normally because of that. And they ask serious questions such as, well, if they are suffering, then why can't I go on with my everyday life? Which of course is not the correct way of thinking. But if we're talking about effects on mental health, these are real. So people feel they are guilty even if they do everyday normal things because they see constantly Muslims suffering elsewhere. So this is also something that we should learn how to deal with social media. I don't know if you have seen the same problem there in your
Absolutely,
community.
absolutely. I
Yes.
mean, what to talk of your news feed? I mean, there's a single person who is posting, intense image of the persecution that our brothers and sisters are facing, and then 5 minutes later, the same person is posting a joke, is sharing a joke. So again, what are we subjecting ourselves to? It's scary, a cat photo and then this intense human suffering, and then you go and there's a joke. So again, you get to understand nothing about what is happening, and where your activism is all over the place. So this brings me to this important question, Dr. Francesca, that when we are seeing a lot of those images and violence and videos, and we want to keep ourselves aware as well. So where do we strike a balance between seeing what our brothers and sisters are going through so that something can be done about it, and at the same time not making it debilitating for our own mental health? So it's like, why am I going normal with my life? So where can we strike a balance?
This is very deep, and thanks for that. And my subjective answer to that, because I still do not have something that I can advise to all clients about. We try to go case by case. But my subjective balance is try to go more with the information and less with the content. What to mean? There is a lot of like very thoughtful podcasts around that explain what is going on. There are a lot of GoFundMe's or charities that operate in Gaza, and choosing to consume like a podcast explaining to you what Israel really is doing there is more effective, I think, for your mind, for your heart, than seeing the images of helpless people that you don't know, you don't even know where they are, but you see them suffering. Your brain, our human brain, is not made to be able to process that. That gets us into a shock, and that's right. It's supposed to do that. It's a defense mechanism for extreme situation, and exposing ourselves to violence when there is no need to. And what I'm saying is not we don't need to be aware of what is going on. What I'm saying is we don't need to see specific images of violence to know that what is going on is complete evil. On the other hand, when we learn here in school, right, when we learn the Second World War and the Holocaust, it takes all the time they talk about that, all the time. We do not see like such explicit images, or if we see one perhaps in years in which this is talked about, what we talk about is what was going on, why did they do that, how could the normal people withstand, how did they fight that. This is very important, and more important than just seeing a human person suffering. Furthermore, it adds one more layer. I know that there are many Palestinian activists that put themselves out there and they talk about what is happening, and I'm completely fine with that. Or they show around them what happened to their house or whatever. I'm completely fine with that. What I'm not completely fine on a psychological and also dignity level is when random people record like a person dying, losing their home, or being in a state when they're out of themselves and screaming, and they didn't post that. I don't know if that's okay to watch it, because I don't know if those people agreed, if they would like to be remembered at the worst, or if they would like to be remembered when they were not even alive anymore. So there is also that type of problem. And we can know that these monstrosities are happening, that the genocide is happening, without taking out any dignity to the people. So I don't know if I could explain it well, because it's
It's
a
a
fine
very
line. It's a
and a
fine
very
line.
thin thread to walk on when you're having a conversation around such an intense topic. So I'll just probably move back a little bit where you mentioned, you gave a very nice analogy that, there's this paper and you can write anything. So I usually put it in a way that you have this wannabe self and then you have this real self. And everyone is posting their wannabe self
Yeah.
on social media, and as a result we see that and we are depressed because we couldn't go to that vacation. That now again, I would ask Dr. Francesca, what would you advise as a psychologist, that how do women balance being on social media and maintaining their family lives and personal goals and well-being? Because of course nobody can advise that you just log out, and that is practically perhaps not possible in the day and age that we live in, or turn off all social media. What is the advice? How do we strike that balance that perhaps we are looking for?
Yeah. So if a woman does not have to use social media for her work, I suggest to really limit it to a certain amount of time during the day, and that choice should be conscious. So there have been studies that have shown that times longer than 30 minutes a day spent scrolling have a detrimental effect on our mental health and on our brain functionality. So one can do whatever they want with that information. But for sure, reaching what I'm seeing in many households, and especially Muslim households, I'm seeing we're being really, really, really struck hard with this plague of social media, is that people never leave their phones. And that's not how we're supposed to live with like a brick in our hand the whole time. This not, you need your hands to do other things. You need to be present in the situation. So I see women using their phone when they cook, when they
Hmm.
have dinner, when they have the kids around. And I mean, in that case, I think that what you're doing is that you're really not living, because the meaning and of cooking is in the cooking itself. The meaning of spending time with the children is in the spending time itself. And if you're always living on a double road, on a double rail, then you're not present in one and then you're not present in the other. And if you discover that just being with your family is not enough, I know it's something hard to say and hard to recognize to yourself, but it can be, then I think that counseling and mental health support should be sought, because it means there is a deep-seated unhappiness, deep-seated dissatisfaction, and that's okay. But people in the past always used to deal with it, bringing it out, not just drawn it in social media. Well, nowadays I'm seeing many people who drawn their deeper problems, existential doubts in social media. So it's really an anesthetic. It's used like opium, right? It was quite some time back. And that's scary.
Yeah, it's just like an addiction. So I'll just, just like substance addiction, I'm going to be drowning myself in social media. So I forget all about the serious issues that life is throwing at me, or the serious questions that life is throwing at me. And I need to address them in order to have a stable mental health, if you will. Uh,
Yes.
so yeah, it makes, what role does spirituality play here, Dr. Francesca? What has spirituality to do with your struggles with respect to family, with respect to children, or with respect to, maintaining a presence on social media?
Yeah, I think that's really the key to everything that we have to go through in life. And it's the first type of key because it is what gives meaning to all of that. What most people here in Italy, they dread waking up in the morning, and they just live and work to arrive to the weekend. And from weekend to weekend, they just live to arrive to retirement and then to die. And people are aware of that. So spirituality is what can bring us out of the hamster wheel of this subhuman type of living and give meaning. And this meaning is taken, well, first of all, it depends, because I think even any form of spirituality is better than materialism, right? But if we're talking for Muslim, which of course I believe is the highest form of spirituality that we can achieve, that it means to give a noble meaning to every action through the power of intention. It means to perfect our character, to perfect ourselves as well. So it's not just a spirituality that tells us the big questions and philosophically, it's a practical spirituality as well. So concerning our role as mothers, it puts us in a mindset of service, of joyful service, which I think is of the utmost importance and is what people are struggling with the most, women nowadays, in being mothers. It's because while you're a mother, unless there are really strange circumstances or particular circumstances, well, the priority goes to your children, and your work takes a toll for a few years. Your career takes a toll, your beauty takes a toll. And if you can accept it or not, it really depends on the meaning you give to that action. And we're seeing in Islam, motherhood is of an incredible nobility as an action. So that helps as well, as it helps the kindness that we show to children, because then the children reply back with kindness, and that of course is nice. So it's for sure having a family where everybody is treating each other kindly and with patience and with the recommended guidelines of adab and akhlaq is simply wonderful. So it's also something that we should do for the sake of it as well. So spirituality is an advantage for family life. Sometimes people say and are afraid that becoming more religious will mean that more things will become strict and harder on themselves, especially as women. Well, what we see is actually the opposite. If everybody in the family becomes more religious, we will have a climate of acceptance, of kindness, of mutual help. And this is really, really something beautiful.
I completely agree. And I mean, so many beautiful experiences that motherhood brings with it. I mean, we only perhaps magnify the challenges and ignore the all the beautiful experiences. It just changes you as a person. So this is something that we can definitely talk about as well in great length. But again, I will request you to perhaps get into some details as to what habits or what practices do you recommend for women trying to create this healthy balance. So, yeah, but perhaps a few um, bullet points that can help the women to inculcate or include in their lives.
Yes, so the first thing that I would suggest for women to do is when they have very small children is to practice a lot of dhikr and Quran during that time. And the reason is, especially if they are in a situation in which they are in a nuclear family, so it's just them with the baby, that can be sometimes alienating for a while, right? You don't know what you're doing anymore. You don't know what time of the day is really confusing. And of course, your hormones are all over the place. So that's also not easy. So trying to reconnect back to something that is soothing yet meaningful. It's very rare to find something that has these characteristics. So the practices of dhikr, to connect with those names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you find most meaningful for you at the moment, or with specific chapters of the Quran that mean something to you, can bring you back. And the benefit of those is that you can just recite them in your heart or practice them even if you're taking care of an infant. And then while they're growing up, of course, starting to impart Islamic education means to start giving the good example. And this is really when things get interesting, right? So because you can teach polite manners, you can teach the adab of asking, all the types of good behaviors that we love as Muslims. So I think really one thing that characterizes us is the civilization of adab, of good behavior. Nowhere else you find such an attention to the manners of asking, touching, eating, drinking, and they all make a beautiful, beautiful set when they're put together, of refinement, of kindness, but simplicity at the same time. And this, of course, helps the child and the mother to become closer and closer to the other parents, to the rest of the environment, of course, in a Muslim society, and then to integrate better. And then At the same time, one specific struggle that I find in many women is not to search for education after this period. So they tend to become a bit more stable, just taken by the needs of the house and of the children. But especially when the children start going to school or they're of a bigger age, as a woman, we should understand we still have resources, we still have something to give, and we shouldn't give in on life just because we have accomplished our basic duties, right? And sometimes this is a big giving in on life is loss of motivation. Some other times instead it is laziness, because also vices are a reality of the human being. Or sometimes it can be also undiagnosed depression, so we should watch it, right? When children start being a bit bigger, they tend to close on themselves, and this could be the time also to give back to the community. We have many cases and many situations in which mosques need women, women's spaces, women's circles, and there's nobody taking care of that. But things as simple as giving a hand in cleaning the mosque, preparing the meals during Ramadan, or if one has an education, to transfer that education to the women Muslim community. I think that that's something amazing. And then this really, again, it gives sense to one's life, and this is something invaluable, because going to bed thinking that tomorrow is a day that is going to have a meaning, inshallah, and I will spend it with an intention that I've already formulated, and it will go in a certain direction, on a certain path, that is so important for mental health.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the again, the day and age that we live in, there's a lot of marketing around happiness, how to be happy, 25 ways to be happy. And I usually say that happiness is just a byproduct of engaging in some meaningful activity. Right? So as you said that, you are going to bed thinking that tomorrow is going to be a meaningful day, that will lead to happiness, or happiness is going to be the byproduct of that. Engaging in, even when it comes to being a young mother, then taking care of that child, that is a meaningful activity that you engage in, having a good relationship, and that actually gives you happiness, and the rest is just like a happiness industry that is selling stuff that is ajib, right? I don't know how to put that. uh,
Yes.
so I would just probably request you perhaps that if there is something, if there is a particular woman who has some challenges that perhaps you would want to bring into a therapeutic setting, what are the ways to contact you, or what are the ways to benefit from you?
Yes, thank you very much for that. And I do follow women in these stages, and I care a lot about women mental health. It's one of the emergencies of the age, and as many people have said before me, taking care of the mental health of the mothers is really taking care of the mental health of all the community. So if someone wants to get in contact with me, I will leave a link to my website, to Sister Bela, to put below the video, and they will be able to contact me from there. I don't have a lot of social media presence. My social media personal account is just photos of the nature around here, so there's not much. But I have a website and all of that. So
But I can say that Dr. Francesca, social media is just a treat to eyes, because you see so much of universe, beauty, nature, and yeah, that is very that is a treat to the eyes, and it really calms down your mental health issues.
alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. All right, Dr. Francesca, any last words? Inshallah, we can wind it up, conclude, inshallah.
Yeah, perhaps if we're talking about women mental health, one thing that I think is really the key to many of the problems of these ages, trying to think that we as women are complementary to men. So many times I see on social media around that there is this narrative that men are like scary or bad, or we need to get rid of them, or whatever, live without them. We should recognize the sacred will of creating us this way. So there is us, and we have perhaps a different sensibility, and there is them that they have also a different sensibility, and each other, as the Quran says, we are the awliya, so we're friends and good custodians of each other. So try to bring a mindset of positivity around, I think, is also something very important.
Absolutely, and I would perhaps just add one thing that works really well is gratitude. And it's not about toxic positivity, it's just about focusing on things that are working in your life. And that's perhaps the easiest way to take off your attention from something that is not working to something that is working, or comparing yourself to a friend who had a better vacation than you had. So, perhaps consciously, mindfully inculcating the practice of gratitude really helps. I am so grateful to you, Dr. Francesca, that you came, that you gave your time. And I know your time is very precious. You're a teacher, you're a mother, you are a therapist. So I am so genuinely grateful. And so many of the things that I really wanted someone to say, that you said them all. So inshallah, Dr. Francesca, I hope that inshallah we're going to be meeting again, doing something else. And if the audience wants us to speak about something together, inshallah, we are open to suggestions. Thank you. Inshallah, we'll meet
Thank you so
again.
much. I was really happy to see you again also.
Same here. All right, let's call it a day. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.